Art therapy, it's like, for me, it's the way of like connecting with other people and communicating with other people through art, whereby they can express their feelings, they can talk about their emotions, and they can sometimes have fun just to create. Yeah. I think that's what I understand by art therapy.
Babang baruna harina misebeti Bang baruna wala marubalo Patsamaya barubala koditerate Yo tu saramaseri Tu saramaseri Noyana, noyana, noyana Noyana, noyana Noyana, 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 Fatilaza, yeah, Batu Bamala, Wakitala, but am I ever really true to Mositurate? Oh, Feliz, Sadin Toli Matsanyeho, oh, Feliz. Saramatseri Mutimu waruna kaufela Mutimu wabashileng ni bapilanga Huriri ya ukupa Noyana, Noyana, Noyana Noyana, Noyana Noyana, Noyana, Noyana Noyana, Noyana, Noyana
sahlala thili manje masiqala lezinto lezi basingenela bathatha ama DVD bathatha ama TV bathatha ifridge bathatha konje konke nje vela bekusendlini bathatha neinform yabantwana konke nje bephakathi bashangalula mabaceda bashisa kodwa laba abantu laba ngiyabazi abayenzi lezi zinto zibathatha ngalandela icase uma ngiyilandela amaphoyisa anisa lena ngabona ukuthi akusize ngahlala inhliziyo yami ibuhlungu ngihlala ngikhala eholweni Mangphuma lapha ngahlangana nabantu bangishaka ubuhlungu ngawa phansi mangiwa phansi ngivuka ngigcwele igazi mangigcwele igazi
swithiki sesungarili ngakula ni vona mina nanhlanu huma leswi ni nga swi vona swi tsakisa
inhliziyo yami ibuhlungu ngoba
la ku thachara
When we came to the camp at Boksburg, we found men queuing for food and women idling, not knowing what to do. We had to walk all around to gather them. The men that were standing in the queues didn't come because they felt that it was embarrassing for them to stand in queues and queue for food. Seeing that it was men that were skilled men that had puzzle shops, men that had jobs, men that had money. Now we're queuing for food. they felt very embarrassed.
The Art Therapy Centre has historically responded to trauma on a national level. So with the refugee crisis, and I guess the people being displaced and moved into very unknown, unfamiliar territories, we were able to kind of come in from an investigative place of seeing what the needs are rather than imposing something on a situation. And over time, I think as the counsellors got to know the site and as the people got to know them, people started coming out of their tents and being curious and asking questions about what they were there for. And we really explained that we were there to offer psychosocial support as the main psychosocial provider of that camp.
When we told them that we want them to tell us how they feel about what happened, they sat down and they started to listen. And then we gave them materials and they were drawing what happened. The theme was, what brought you here? What brought you to this situation, this desperate situation? So the men drew what happened to them. They drew how their shacks were burnt, how they were hit. And some men say it happened at night when they were from work. And they didn't know anything about this. They just heard noises outside, and then when they came out, they found that the people were shouting, "Kill them, kill the Shangans, kill them." And then when they ran, they lost their kids. They just didn't know what to do. There are a lot of images that we have that show how they were killed, how they were burnt, how their children were raped. There is a woman whose child was raped here, and the men were there, but they couldn't help because they had to run for their lives. That is what was happening in the Boksburg shacks. That's what we gathered from these Boksburg shacks.
Having the images was a very powerful way of them engaging with the trauma and what had happened. And I guess in any kind of trauma situation, it's a very common practice. It's called a witness to violence interview in a way, where people are invited to create an image of the event. And that allows a space that's a bit removed to start talking about it, but also on a sensory level, things get remembered that they may have forgotten about, around the smell of things at the time, or what it looked like, or the feeling of it, or the taste of it, and often that kind of gets evoked through the visual image.
I wanted to know how they feel, because I was Zulu and I was addressing them in Zulu, and they say that it's Zulus that burnt their shacks. They were hateful. They were really, really, really hateful of my presence there. And it made me feel shudders running through my spine, that I might be in danger. But now, because I was there to help, I was there for a job, and I listened, I stood there. When they put the vulgar words, I listened. But they calmed down because I was there, and they could see that I wasn't there to fight. I had materials there. They were expressing their, what should I call it now? Their pain to me, and I was taking the pain. And then I told them that I want to take the pain with, that there was nothing I could offer, but just to take their pain with me.
The objective was really to provide a space where people could start to rebuild themselves in some way, in very unoptimal circumstances.
Yeah, in front of me I have some of the work produced by kids at the camps. Their ages ranging from 3, 4 to around about 16, 15, 16. I think when we started with the group, we did not necessarily know what to expect. We did not necessarily give them any theme for the day to follow. But it was so surprising that most of the work that they produced were around housing or houses or shelter, if I may put it that way. They created, pictures of houses. Like this one was done by Temba. Basically shows their desires, their dreams of one day being able to get into their own homes. The last time perhaps they checked, they had a shack or a home somewhere, and then they are here, all of them, at a very small space, and they're living in tents. And I think the achievement of our work at the camp was to bring genuine smiles to their faces, and a measure of normalcy and under the circumstances, I think.
So a safe space really is a concept of a container or a containing function. And in that safe space is a parental kind of symbolic person, whether it's one counsellor or two counsellors, usually two, and often representing a maternal or paternal function, with a group that offers a safety within, as if it is a symbolic family. And I think because of the dissolution of families, because of the HIV pandemic and with the refugee crisis and all the other things that are going on in the country, there are very few safe spaces where people can be in or live in or experience. So what we try to set up in all the communities really is a potentially safe space or a community resource where people can come and at least have one experience of what that safe space feels like.
It's a bit hard to satisfy everyone's needs, but yeah, it's also nice to see that they managed to create something at all. So many things.
Within the refugee camps, they were set up as a potentially safe space for people to escape from the havoc of what was going on in their locations and places they were living in, but have proven to be really not safe at all.
Beautiful.
Working with people who've experienced pain and trauma is very difficult because sometimes you'll take in their own emotions, and then when you go back home you feel like it's too much for you, and then it's important that you offload. So the debriefing, it was helpful in terms of us able to take out whatever we take in and then talk about our own experiences. So it was helpful in that way. Maybe I can start because we've already talked about the image. As you were saying, I'm just thinking it seems as if it's a tray of a delicious food, but then my experience was not that, because they were bringing something that was painful emotionally and otherwise. So as for me, I was a sponge, when the sponge is absorbing the water. So I had to take in whatever they were saying, and then at the end of the day I felt overwhelmed and I was exhausted because of what they were telling me. So that's how I felt today. And at this moment, they are very fragile and heartbroken. They don't know what to do. I could feel it. They took all my energy today. They did.
Towards the end of this process, what's been happening is people have really determined what they need from the counsellors rather than what the counsellors have brought to them, and what they're needing is a voice and really needing to write their stories much more vocally and say what their needs are and really sort of shout and scream about what's not going on and what should be going on, and being able to voice their anger. So we've become a receptacle for a lot of anger as well as the trauma.
When I made this image, to me those people at the camp, it's as if they were just thrown into the felt. And this is how I also feel inside. I feel very bad.
In terms of Maslow's hierarchy, we're not anywhere near the top, and ironically, we're the only service that's remained. So, in trying to do a good enough job and remain constant and consistent, I think it's very frustrating for the members of the community in the refugee camp, because there is such a limited kind of role that we can play. And at the moment, when real food is needed, it's not seen as a good enough feed. So it's quite hard on the counsellors too, who feel quite useless and helpless. And in the bigger scheme of things, it takes a lot of work to keep finding value and acknowledging that what we're doing is an important function still, just to remain a container.
There was this lady who said, you know what, you are better than others because you came back here. Others promised us something that didn't happen, and we never seen them again. So at least you are coming back and come to see us as to where we are.
It's painful to live with something that you are eating inside.
Eating you up. Yeah.
But if somebody is there, listening to what you're saying, talking, and it makes a step. So by the end of the day, there's something that could have maybe shielded you and stuck with the life or with thinking. Then if somebody is there and put off or open up the curtain, then you move on. You can think, you can focus.
Mina nimata mongo citizen Lesotho Africa. Niva ntwana bami nibazale la. Anina mntwana phuma ngaphandle. Ubaba wami uye akwawaphi ngaphandle. Mara lihlo lakalikho umuzi wami utshe wonke akuna into ningaphuma nayo niphumeni nje abana mahloli kuniqhwalile lo muntu anisupporta uye lo bamgopoleza imali emehlo mara uze ngemthetho wamayini mara xa kusenziwa yakuphi na umuntu lo aqhwalile animayazi kuphela mina ngivela nizalwe la ngicedile.
The threats of camps closing and moving and people being sort of shipped off and moved back to their countries or moved to other sites has been imminent for for the last few weeks and months even. The whole nature of the refugee crisis is people have been uprooted prematurely from places that they didn't choose to be uprooted from, and in a way providing a service within that context kind of colludes with that process, because we don't have the luxury really of ensuring that we can continue the work. We can really try to find ways in which to keep links, but Many people don't have cell phones. We don't know where they're going to be moving to. We don't know how they'll, how we'll maintain contact. So I guess what we can do is reflect the movability of their lives at the moment, and that what we do is part of that. So they start to internalize this as a reality, and find ways in which to manage it and understand it, rather than pretending that we can create something that's different.
I do think we need to kind of acknowledge what we have done, and the fact that, like you said before, the camp, it ran really well. Like, people got aggressive, they got angry, but they didn't get violent, things like that. And I think acknowledging that, and acknowledging that there were really positive outcomes and kind of, moments of our time there.
So having an exhibition, which we're planning to have at Constitution Hill, and generally having exhibitions which we have generally had annually, as the Art Therapy Centre, is a way of showcasing the work that we do and really sort of making visible the projects and the processes that go on in the different contexts. Whenever we have an exhibition, it's really in collaboration and with consent of whoever's making the images, and the people that are making them within that context feel very strongly about exhibiting.
When we put together Safe Spaces, our aim was really to explore the refugee experience. So when we set up the exhibit, there was a lot of debate and conversation as to how we would establish the rooms and how we would set up the space. And what we really wanted to convey was that sense of experience, and starting from the beginning, starting from when the violence began, and the energy and the mood of the country and what it was like to be here then. And to take people back to that place, and then to take them, rather than through, the stories that came from the media, take them through the stories that came from the camp.
Lana maybe uRosa ngazakuzela maybe ngoba nayo experience akuzokwenzakalana. So khona into ayinotisayo, maybe ufuna ubatshela ukuthi ubonani kwenzakalana.
Lesbian sifake ekwelinye itende bathi sivale lanto le eyenzakalayo lapha phakathi ematende kusiyenzakalayo. Manje thina sathi akujabulisi ukuthi khona abantu abalwayo bayalimazana, bahluphe ama-security, abanye bashaya ama-security ngezitina. Manje futhi baphinda bahlala basicambela nabo bathi ukudla kwasekhaya angeke kusaze, and abantu lapha ematende bayalimazana, kuhlala kuza amaphoyisa njalo.
There's one kid who said, I learned history in my school, but then I was learning about people whom I didn't know. Like, now, from what I'm hearing, from what I'm hearing from the people who've experienced this, from the people who went to the camps and stay in the camps, for me this is history, because now I'm part of it. And I'm hearing it from someone who was also there. So from what I've learned here, it's something that I can pass through to other learners who were not here.
We included a reintegration program throughout the exhibition. And what we did is we invited schools, learners and educators from districts that had been affected by the violence. Some of the learners had been in the camps. Some of their friends had been in the camps. Some groups of learners recognised people in the photos as people who were in their communities and who disappeared.
The importance of making memories. I think in contexts where memories have been taken away, and in the refugee context, people's possessions and photographs and things were burnt or, stolen or pillaged, or they had to leave behind, so there's very little memory that gets left behind. There's nobody to document or make memory of their lives. So in that way, photography and video is a very powerful way of keeping a life going and keeping a memory alive.
Working with the educators, we had a real mixed response. And our ideas behind the workshops was to really start to explore issues of discrimination and difference. and to bring it up and to make it kind of spoken about. Some of them were really grateful, like really grateful to have the space in which to consider and think and just stop and reflect. Others were questioning us as to why we were investing our time and energy into providing a voice for the refugee communities when their own communities didn't have a voice.
To some, it was like, yes, we can see that you're showing us this exhibition, but still, there's still a lot that the government needs to do in terms of, here in South Africa, there's a lot of people who are like citizens of South Africa. They've been applying for houses for a very long time, but still they don't have houses. We've got a problem of the unemployment, poverty. And you can see if we have those problems, and then other people who come here to this country, and then they also need houses, they need jobs, they need everything. So I think some of those things led to this xenophobic attack, you know, because we also have our own problems in this country. So I think maybe people were overwhelmed, or they were saying, no, we have to do something, because now these people, they come here to take our jobs, to take our houses, to take our, you know, everything that we have, the little that we have. So there was a need for them maybe to protect those things.
Well, we had learners who were living in, you know, communities in South Africa who were going to a local school, who a lot of them had been exposed to the violence and had been there and witnessed it and responded to that and showed their side of the story as well, which was a really interesting process. I mean, we had a lot of houses and we also had a lot of images of violence. So while we were working in the camp and providing support for the refugee communities, what the reintegration program really highlighted is that the impact on the other side. What we plan to do this year is to re-engage with the schools which have refugee learners, not just to focus on the refugee learners, but again to explore things which came up in the workshop, which were issues of difference and discrimination. You work with one educator and you can reach, you know, at least 50 learners, which really increases the capacity of the work we do, rather than us going directly to the learners.
Lesson that I learned today, that we must not treat people like animals, like xenophobia. They treat people like they are not South Africans.
Everyone in this country is equal, and we must treat anyone equal because we are the same color, we speak the same language. There's no difference between us and the other people. We are the same thing.